Hi, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted on this episode to be talking with someone who's been in the comics business for a little while now, with a nice range of titles from Midnight Suns to Barb Wire to Shadow Masters and lots of things in between. And that is comics creator Dan Lawlis. Dan, thank you for jumping in and thank you for joining.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's fun. So,
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for saying yes. So curious by means of a first question about what in your view, what in your experience sort of makes comics this unique space that you've wanted to create in?
well, aside from just, my generation, I loved them as a kid. There used to be every convenience store, on those spinner racks, and you come in, there's these colorful, pamphlets with it just was pure fun. So
Hmm.
I,
Hmm.
I, I love that. But aside from that, the actual why it works better than other medias is because you can see the person's thoughts. There's not a lot another medium like that where with a movie, you're not really seeing what the person is thinking. And
Hmm.
with a prose, just a novel, you don't get the same exact effect. You can't see their face and see the thoughts. So
Hmm.
it's actually a really powerful uh, storytelling method. And it's I don't think comics will ever go away because of that unique quality that it has that can't no one else can duplicate. So in print or something like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. The image is striking for sure. And we were talking a little bit before I hit record about literacy and art and comics and such. The level of characterization that you can get with an image. Um, Thinking about what I know of your history with the character of Barb Wire, and I listened to your talk on Dollar Bin Bandits, and so just thinking about the intentional design of that character, and anytime you design a character or a setting, the time that it takes to make all those decisions, it's pretty impressive.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, I actually didn't design the character, but yeah, I think I made that character come alive though.
Hmm. Hmm.
It was just a lot of fun. It wasn't just the character, it was the world that they had constructed.
Yeah.
It was a really rich, it was like they had created their new Gotham City and their new metropolis. It was really well worked out. So it was easy to walk into. It was a bit grungy. It was very much that time of the early 90s type feel.
Hmm.
So it had a little bit of the 80s left over in it, but uh, the underground comic book scene, so that sort of thing. But it
Yeah.
was just, I just was perfect for me. Plus, it was Dark Horse themselves, the company. They were
Hmm.
a little bit less corporate focused. They were a little bit more creator owned things, and they seemed to just have a little more attention to the creators. And whereas I thought the big companies were just sort of like just chucking it out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
understandably so, they got to get this stuff out on time, and there's deadlines and stuff. And Dark Horse was just a little more, I don't know, down to earth. I felt like for me, I enjoyed it more. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they really kind of asked you, "What do you want to do?" kind of thing. I was like, "Oh, that's different."
Yeah, well, and as a reader in comics, I immediately appreciated Dark Horses, a publisher that did things that were outside of the norm of what I was seeing. So I also appreciated that aspect on the reader side as well. So
Yeah,
glad to hear it was rewarding on the creator side.
yeah. Well, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't seen no Mike Mignola really. I mean, like
Hmm.
that the whole thing, the Hellboy and I think I wasn't first. I think it was First Comics that did Quorum. He did Quorum with them, but you know, those sort of fantasy characters that really didn't get much hold in the mainstream.
Hmm.
Dark Horse could tackle those subjects, Dracula or whatever they just really kind of were able to, yeah, like I said, just a little bit, off the beaten track a little bit more.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
thought that was fun. So it
Yeah.
was just a cool company. So I think it kind of still is, but
Yeah, it seems to be. It seems to be. I continue to enjoy the work, and I mentioned a couple of titles there, Midnight Suns and Shadow Masters, and of
yeah,
course
those are
Barbed
Marvel.
Wire again. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Curious about titles that were not on that brief list that I mentioned that were particular mile markers for you or particularly positive experiences.
Well, it wasn't until Barb Wire and Agents of Law, when I worked with Giffen there,
Hmm. Hmm.
that I really kind of felt like I hit my stride artistically and stuff. I felt like Marvel was a bit of a warm up. With the exception being at Marvel was those little collector cards I did. Those when I painted my own work.
Hmm.
It was just, but it was really the almost like I felt like the team up with Ian Aiken, the inker that I got at Dark Horse with both those comic books, Barb Wire and Agents of Law. It just we were just in sync, and it just when that happens, it's just like what I draw, he does it or better.
Yeah.
I get back
Yeah.
nice crisp lines that I'm not incapable of doing.
Yeah.
So the one time that did happen at Marvel was when Keith Nolan inked one of my Strange Tales things, and I didn't know anything about Keith Nolan. I mean, Kevin Nolan,
Uh,
and
uh,
uh, and I just Carl Potts said, "Hey, we got this guy," and I got the stuff back, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Wow. Like I said, can he ink more? If I, because he just took my beginner drawings
yeah.
and made them fantastic. So that was pretty cool. So everyone's mad at me now because they're all like, I always wanted to be inked by him. Like,
Nice.
sorry,
You
just
know?
lucky, I suppose, but it was
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, yeah, and talking about Keith Giffen, I imagine um, looking at the creative side of his work as somebody that worked with him. I was fortunate enough to talk with him over the summer before he passed, and just the humor, the wit, the repartee that he brought was so interesting. So I imagine that came through creatively as
Yeah. How
well.
about that last text he did his last text?
Yes, yeah,
That's a sense of humor. That's a good guy. But yeah,
definitely.
he was really creative, and it was it was just like over the top. Just he just didn't hold anything back. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I think he created Lobo.
He
I
did.
think
Hmm.
he
Yeah,
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 which I think I asked him about, and he didn't like that he had created Lobo. He
yeah,
didn't care for the character. I was like, really? I mean, that's a crazy cool character, but
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. It's so unique and fun, but
And it's fun to hear the stories behind the scenes in that way too. Kind of
yeah.
interesting. And Agents of Lao was almost on my short list of the couple to mention at the top. So glad that you mentioned it here as a milestone. Any other
Yeah.
collaborators that were really positive along the way as well?
Not too much. Jeff Albrecht, I like his inks over my work, that sort of thing. But
Hmm.
really, one of the interesting things was when I did that fully painted one, where I with who's the writer, the Star Wars writer, Timothy Zahn,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Star Lord, and I that was a good opportunity to find out you find out how when you paint a book and you don't have time for reference and stuff, you find out either how good you are or how bad you are. So some of it I think looks pretty cool, some of it not so much. One of the things I found too was just the color pencil technique that I was using on all
Hmm.
those cards and stuff. I was taking like a half size reduction. Well, when it doesn't take that half size, you see a lot of the graininess of the pencil texture that you don't even see with your eye. And if you looked at that original, so when I finally saw it after years of work, it was just like it was really, really disappointing to see it didn't print as well as I wanted it to, But besides that, just the freedom to just control the art completely, and
Hmm.
which is what I can do now. Now, I mean, with the computer now, oh, it's so much better. It's just I can control that when it goes to print. I know it's going to be a 50% cyan blue or something like that. I can
Hmm.
control the actual percentages of the with your eyedropper in Photoshop, you can actually control everything about it, how it's going to look, and so when it goes to print, there's really not much of a surprise when you get it back. It's usually pretty good.
Yeah.
The printing technology is great too. The paper is amazing. I mean, you get these comics now; they got these matte finishes, and they're like just fantastic. So
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. It's like the materials kind of support the art in a way.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Although that's I think that's an interesting point though, just this technology and how things are changing. Uh, I mentioned before, Marvel kind of didn't do the fantasy stuff that much.
Hmm.
Now, with the computer coloring and all that sort of thing, and the printing, you can do you can instead of doing a face, it's just a one tone. Now you can shade it with all different colors, and that actually I think was the problem with fantasy things like Lord of the Rings or something
Hmm.
getting made into comics because their costumes were more organic. They weren't just the comic. I mean, the flat colors works better for Superman, Spider-Man, where it's just red, blue, yellow, And
Hmm.
when you have the sophisticated palette of color range, now the fantasy you can do more Frazetta stuff where you got the facial tones and stuff. Where now, so it actually fantasy has an advantage that I think it was kind of crippled before it wasn't getting off the ground. So
Yeah.
I think things will change a little bit. More people are doing fantasy, which I think I kind of prefer. I think that's one of your questions. You're saying,
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
do I prefer? I mean, I'm a Lord of the Rings, not, but I like sci-fi too, and that stuff. I love Conan. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
all that fun. I love the Frazetta stuff. I mean, that was a big deal for me. I mean, as shaping me as an artist, as it did many people. That
Yeah. Yeah.
fantasy stuff.
Now you've worked on Conan, is that right? Am I remembering that correctly?
I only got to do one Savage Sword or Conan cover.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Just recently, though, I did a Conan cover for Chuck Dixon. He's got a Conan
Nice.
novels that he's putting out, and it's a new one called Caravan Out of the Dam. But the uh, there's a soft cover, and then my cover is going to be for the hardcover. I think, anyways. Hopefully,
Nice.
they seem to like it. Everyone seemed to like it. So, well, I guess until it happens, but the art's finished, so it
Yeah.
was fun to do.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love Conan. I did one Savage Sword of Conan, but then I did some interiors that were just like black and whites,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they were kind of cool. But they were just not the covers; they were just backup illustrations. They often had like a pinup section, things like that. So I got a couple of cool ones in there, but that was it. Unfortunately, when I did that Savage Sword of Conan, like it was a month after that, it was one more month, and then Marvel stopped doing the Savage Sword at that
Yeah.
time. So I was just like, just when I was just getting, because I could have got more character, more covers, and that didn't happen. So
So it sounds like it's a
I
good
mean,
thing to work with Chuck Dixon on this. You
yeah,
get to
well,
create a
yeah, I
little
read
bit
his
more.
story, and he's of course he's an experienced writer, and it's
Hmm.
really great. And so I read the story, and it's just like Robbie Howard stuff. You feel like you're walking into it. You forget you're reading a story. So
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
just, but when you guys knows what we're doing, that's what happens. And it's like it's just a lot of fun. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other characters or story worlds that you would like to go back to and create in more, or that you haven't had the chance to tackle yet that you'd like to?
well, since I love Conan, I mean now I mean are you familiar with this crowdfunding kind of explosion that's happened
Hmm.
lately? Uh, I'm actually really excited by it because I haven't really done much comics in 10 years or so, and or more really. I think actually more. Um, but I got interested in it because like all of a sudden you can, because my biggest frustration in Marvel and these comic companies was I can't do the best quality work on a monthly scale. I just can't, and it was
Yeah.
so frustrating.
Hmm.
But the opportunity now to take a comic book and have 6 months to work on it, well, you can make it just as good as you can make it, and that's a lot of fun. And if you can make a living from it, that if that can happen. Now, not it's a bit like being a musician. It's a hit or miss. So most
Yeah.
guys kind of don't make much from it, but if you guys do, so if I could swing it, if I put out a book and it were to sell, then I would be back in comics again, which would be interesting to kind of finish off my career the way I started it.
Hmm. Hmm. And speaking of science fiction and fantasy, Ron Randall, I understand, is one of those guys that uh, does the crowdfunding and does it the right way. Um, and apparently,
What does he write? I'm not familiar with
Trekker.
Trekker.
Hmm.
Okay, what sounds a little familiar, but I'm not sure. Is it it's sci-fi, but is it novel or is it comics?
It's comics. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. He was on over the summer, and evidently, when folks talk about crowdfunding and people that are just doing it in a really smart way, he is the guy, apparently.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not easy. I mean, just to because you got to do this. What we're doing now, you got to do this YouTubing and all,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
interviewing and for artists like myself, we're introverts. We just like, what? I
Yeah.
got to talk.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking with me.
Absolutely.
I always try to create a comfortable vibe. I know that that's not necessarily everybody's thing. So I appreciate you responding with a yes.
Oh, good, good. Yeah. Well, I actually really found I actually really like it because
Yeah,
what that
yeah.
was one of the biggest problems that I when I was in comics. I was in from 87 to 97, uh, roughly, uh, and it was lonely. It was really, really lonely, and
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
never I'm in the Detroit area, and I didn't know really any other comic guys, and if I had been in the New York area, that would have been fine, because I could have gone in the offices and stuff like that, but I didn't know anybody, and it was just really tough. And I
Yeah.
didn't have anybody to bounce things off of and inspire me to work. And like a lot of these guys they had little studios, they worked together and inspired each other. And that's what's happening now. I'm sort of working with, like, you're talking to your friends or something, and it's like, what'd you do? Oh, I didn't get anything done today. You kind of almost feel like they're working, I gotta work. You know what I mean? Sort of gets you
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
So
Yeah, that
and
artistic
they want to see
communication.
you, like people literally contacting you and go, "Hey, when are you going to do a book?" And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, I guess I got to get one done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so what's your creative vision at this point, working forward, and what are the things that are drawing your attention that you'd like to explore? Fantasy, it sounds like.
Yep, fantasy. And like I said, I got like a Conan-esque type characters, something like that, more like knights and stuff.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I'm really picking it because I like to paint armor and monsters and so and so more like that. It's like, what do I want to draw? And then I'll make a
Yeah,
story around it.
love it, love it.
So why
If
not,
it's gonna
right?
be your story, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just, I mean, like I said, I love the genre. I love the Lord of the Rings and stuff. That's one of my favorite stories of all time and stuff. I mean, I like Harry Potter. I like that stuff too. So
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, fantasy's fun. So
And you're talking about those nuances of color, and I'm a fantasy and science fiction fan as well. Um, there's so many imaginative elements that you can bring in,
yeah,
and great that the tools are there. Great that the publication materials are there to kind of tell the stories that you want to tell in that way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you ever go on? I go on Pinterest sometimes and just look at these paintings of these almost, I wouldn't, not sure if I call them MAGA artists, but they're all like gaming artists, and
Hmm.
they're doing
Hmm.
backgrounds and
Oh
story
yeah,
development. Some of the best, most imaginative art I've ever seen. It's
yeah.
like you're familiar probably with Sid Mead and stuff. Well,
Hmm.
there's like 50 Sid Meads out there now. There's
Yeah.
so many great science fiction fantasy people, and it's just, and with the computer now too, it actually is a lot easier to construct stuff like that and
Hmm.
make really interesting images. So
Yeah.
almost too good though, because I'll tell you, we're all afraid of AI right now. We're all like, we're seeing these things, like push a button and it's like, and like, oh, 30 some years of artwork and the guy can do it in 2 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But I
like
don't know
that
if it's
human
quite there
touch
yet.
though.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think their skill set, and the problem of course is um doing something really creative, because
Hmm.
when I'm doing an image, I'm drawing something, I'm sweating over every angle and the bend of that finger as it goes into the composition and stuff. There's still so much input to putting together something that,
Hmm.
like I did see I do a Sid Mead piece, and it wasn't as good. It wasn't,
Yeah.
it didn't have the imagination. There was no flair. It didn't have a soul. You could see it in a second. And so even though something can kind of look good, but I
Yeah.
guess the greatest fear is that it'll be good enough, and so that people just buy it and not really wait for something really, really great,
Hmm. Hmm.
that sort of thing. So beginner artists might have a tough time, competing against it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways, I guess
I
nothing really changes too much. So it's always like when something comes in, something goes back, right? You get the computer, it becomes a tool to create, art where you couldn't before and things like that. Because I use the computer all the time, obviously for coloring and painting and everything. So
mm,
it's really amazing.
yeah. Yeah. And I love that human touch, that human voice that comes through, as you were saying, the just not quite good enough kind of thing. I love that kind of creative vision. And when you read somebody's work or you see somebody's work visually enough, you pick up on those things that are uniquely them, and it makes it makes it really stand out in a way that I think a computer would have a difficult time capturing.
Yeah. I would like to see them try to do a new image of Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein. If it can do that, then I'll say okay. But good luck. Good luck with that. You know what I'm saying? It's just
Yeah,
there's no way you're going to match that stuff. Just unless like I said, unless it gets so smart that it can somehow do it.
yeah,
But someone actually made an interesting suggestion out there saying that as it gathers all this information to make a single image, will it gather all the mistakes too and not know the difference? Like not
true.
know, not have the sort of the sensibilities that that inner thing that says this looks good or this looks bad.
Hmm.
It won't really. I don't know if it will. How could it really could know what is good and what is bad? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
true, true.
we'll see. Hopefully that's. I'm just hoping. Oh man,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
holding out hope that like, computer,
absolutely.
if that the computer smokes and burns and blows a fuse.
That's right. That's right. And hey, that happens. That happens. There are always bugs in things for sure.
Yeah.
So curious about and by means of sort of a closing official question, and then we can hit anything that we might have missed. Um, Curious about the spaces that you kind of connect in now, social media wise, website wise, or even like convention wise.
Right now, mostly social media because like I said, there's so few of us
Hmm.
that I can like I had an interview with a guy in Australia,
Yeah,
and it was just like this. It was so much fun, and we were talking, and we just couldn't shut up talking about comics,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we were like with us, we start before the camera even comes on, we start talking about it and
Right.
rolling, and then we just record a part of it. But I've been on kind of the like a YouTube show with a guy uh, in Australia broadcasting, a guy in England, and me,
Hmm.
and it's like we're all talking in real time. It's incredible, it's just you think
Yeah.
about the technology of to be able to have that conversation.
Hmm.
That's kind of right now it's very exciting. But what's happening, I notice, is as people are doing this more and more, they're saying, "Hey, what convention you going to, or where you going?" And then so they're kind of gonna. I can see meetups happening more, and people, then you see them online. And so I'm actually excited to meet the people and meet the people that I see in the chat because a lot of times I'm in these shows. I'm like just in the
Oh
chat
yeah.
talking to people and hey, there's some. So like you see them. I don't know what they look like or anything, but you see them often and you start to get to know them and they're joking, they're all joking each other and giving each other a hard time and fun.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
kind of neat to like that. I think that's a different kind of a community, but it does manifest in actually meeting up at conventions and stuff like that
Hmm. Hmm.
eventually and stuff. But it's a great communication tool. It's what it comes down to. It's really, it's effective and for promoting your books too, for goodness sake. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's the book side of it of sharing about books that I love and characters that I love and creators that I love. And there's also this whole side of it for folks that watch to go, oh, there are people that make this and I want
Yeah.
to learn more about those people and maybe do my own work and share my own story too. So hopefully paying it forward in a way as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing is like, especially when I'm doing these tutorials, as I mentioned to you, like on my YouTube channel.
Hmm.
And I sometimes I do them and I'll make mistakes and stuff, and I'm like, let it go because I want these people to see I'm a human being. I screw up,
Yeah.
and I have to
Yeah.
do. Oh, I got to work on this drawing again and do that. Now I screw up less than I used to when I when I started, but still, I even after 30 some years of drawing professionally, I still look at a drawing and go, what am I doing here? This is not
Right.
working. So
Right.
that's kind of fun for them, for the younger artists to say, look, that's a human being and he's really working hard and it looks cool, but it didn't come easy. Even at this point, they can
Hmm.
see that now. They can see you working and trying to figure it out. And that's really, I think it's a helpful as good as the tips are and the tricks and the knowledge that you're giving people to see that this is a real hard, sort of something you have to work at to develop and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely a process. A
yeah, it's
process, not
definitely
a
a
task.
process. I'm a better artist in some ways than I was a year ago,
Yeah.
and I'm pushing 60. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't have guessed 60, by the way. Wouldn't have guessed 60.
that's because I still got my hair up. Like, unlike the other guys I know. For now, I shouldn't say anything. I should not jinx it.
There you go. Well, did we miss anything? Those were my official questions, but anything that you'd like to shout out from your creative journey or any parting ideas that you want to make sure to share?
Not so much, just to say that I'm more excited in comics than I ever have been.
Awesome.
Because, like I said, to
Awesome.
mention at the time now that if you could do a comic book and spend 6 months on it and still finance it, and it's kind of the European model. I think the Europeans have been doing that for a while, where they'll excuse me, pick an artist and he'll go for work on this thing a whole year, and it comes out and it's just beautiful,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's going to be, if you're going to, you take a good artist and you give them some time, they'll put out something pretty cool. So I'm excited by that.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, that's probably that's the biggest thing for me. Even if I don't do my own creator books, I'm really excited to see these people owning their own creations, because that's some of that frustration too, is watching
Yeah.
some of these guys who created these comic book characters like Jack Kirby or something, and didn't make any money off of it, and saw them make billions of dollars from their creations and stuff. I remember
Yeah.
seeing an interview with Jack Kirby where he's saying he or someone who had spent time with him and said he couldn't go in a toy store because it just drove him nuts to go in there and see all of his creations and he didn't get a dime from. So
Yeah.
it's really nice that these creators, if they're successful, they can own their creations and control their creations too. So they can keep them the way they want them to be. So that's nice.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And just the way that it should be, really.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's keep it to the soul of the creation, the artist, and let them control it. That's a good thing. And keep their hard work,
Hmm.
their spoils, whatever. But I mean, there's something to a comic book company too, that there's something to be said for. I mean, if it wasn't the Marvel machine,
Hmm.
comics wouldn't have made it all over the world. It's kind of, that's part of it. There's good sides to that too. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
just, I'm saying now, after this is sort of, I think it's the next stage. I feel like
Hmm.
we're at that, especially with communication. People are printing their own books, packaging their own books, selling their own books, and shipping their own books. So it's and you can do it now where you couldn't do that before. Really
Yeah.
couldn't.
Yeah. Very exciting time for creators.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Well, Dan, thank you for jumping in. Thank you for talking with me. I'll make sure to
Awesome,
link the tutorial videos and looking forward to the things that are to come.
awesome. Thanks, Jason. Really appreciate you having me on
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much.